You ever have that feeling where you're in the middle of something beautiful, and all you can think about is how wrong it feels? That was me. Standing there in a room full of people I loved, people I grew up with, people who thought tonight was going to be the start of something magical. Fairy lights strung across the ceiling, soft music playing in the background, glasses clinking, laughter bubbling up like champagne. It should have been perfect, and maybe, for everyone else, it was. I tried to smile. Really, I did. I sipped my wine, let my best friend fuss over my hair, laughed when my uncle cracked one of his awful jokes. Played the part. I mean, what else? Was I supposed to do? Ruin it all because of a gut feeling I couldn't quite put into words? He was there too, my boyfriend. Soon-to-be fiancé, though I didn't know that bit yet. Dressed a little sharper than usual, hair carefully styled, the smile he saved for public occasions firmly plastered across his face. God, he looked the part. The golden boy. The kind of man everyone clapped you on the back for catching. And yet, the little things. The way his phone never left his pocket anymore. The tightness in his jaw when he thought I wasn't watching. The way he texted with that slight turn of the body, just enough to shield the screen from me. Small things. Things you talk yourself out of noticing because you don't want to seem crazy or jealous or one of those girlfriends. I told myself tonight was a chance to let all that go. New beginnings, clean slates, happy endings. And then he stood up, tapped his glass with a fork, that sharp, clear sound that cuts through every conversation at once. Heads turned, smiles bloomed. A ripple of excitement ran through the room, like everyone knew what was coming. Except me. I felt my stomach clench before he even said a word. He looked at me, really looked, and for a second I saw it. The panic, the flicker of something that wasn't love or joy or excitement, something closer to guilt, but then it was gone, masked behind a broad, perfect grin. Everyone, he said, voice steady and loud enough to carry. Thank you all for coming tonight. There's someone very special here, and, well, I'd like to ask her a question. The crowd went absolutely still. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. He got down on one knee. The box appeared, like magic from his pocket. Navy velvet, classic, understated. He opened it. A diamond sparkled back at me, bigger than I would have thought he could afford. Someone gasped. My mom clutched her hands to her chest. My friends squealed. Phones snapped up into the air. And me? I stood there staring down at him, hearing a roaring in my ears so loud it drowned out everything else. He asked me to marry him. I didn't even hear the exact words. I was too busy trying to remember how to breathe. For a moment I imagined it, the life we were supposed to have. The house, the dog, the kids, the Sunday roasts, the anniversary trips to Paris or Rome or some little village by the sea. All the things people spend their whole lives dreaming about. And then, uninvited, another image. His hand brushing hers across the counter when he thought no one was watching. A whispered joke. A look that lingered too long. The waitress. I pushed. The thought down hard, buried it under layers of pretend happiness. I smiled. I nodded. I said the word I knew everyone was dying to hear. Yes. The room exploded. Cheers, claps, a sea of noise and movement. He slipped the ring onto my finger. It was heavy, colder than I expected. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted, "Kiss her, mate!" And he did. Too eager. A little sloppy. All I could think was, don't worry, love. You'll get your moment. Just not the one you're expecting, because tonight wasn't going to end with happily ever after. Not for him. Not even close. If you asked anyone in that room, they'd tell you it was the happiest moment of my life. And maybe it should have been. People swarmed around us. Hugs, kisses on the cheek, endless toasts. Glasses raised high, sparkling under the fairy lights. My mom was crying, dabbing her eyes with a tissue she must have pulled from somewhere in the depths of her handbag. My best friend clutched my hand and screamed into my ear that she was so happy for me she could burst. My dad, who normally thought showing emotion was a bit uncool, actually looked proud. It was perfect. Picture perfect. Except, of course, for the part where my heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the congratulations. The part where my skin was crawling with nerves and my smile felt stuck on with glue. The part where, deep down, I knew what was coming next would tear that perfect picture to absolute shreds. But not yet. First, I had to play my part. I let myself be passed from person to person like a prize, squeezing hands, laughing at jokes I barely heard, admiring the ring every time someone held my hand up to the light like I was some sort of display at a museum. He stayed close by, his hand always at the small of my back, steering me gently, subtly. The proud fiancé, the man who had it all sorted. And all the while, I watched. I watched him glance toward the bar. I watched the way his smile slipped just a little when he thought no one was looking. I watched her, the waitress, pretending. To wipe down the same spot on the counter over and over again, face white as a sheet, hands shaking just enough for me to notice. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She knew, and he knew she knew, and I knew. Everything. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It wasn't just a gnawing, ugly feeling in the pit of my stomach. It was real. As real as the weight of the ring on my finger or the stale smell of beer in the air. I spotted my opportunity when the room started to thin out a bit, people drifting towards the buffet table, helping themselves to tiny, sad-looking sausage rolls and soggy sandwiches. I took his hand, smiled up at him like he was the best thing that ever happened to me. "Come on," I said sweetly. "We should say a few words, thank everyone properly." He blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, good idea." I could see it then, the wheels spinning behind his eyes. She's in love. She's happy. Everything's fine. Poor thing. He helped me up onto a low stage someone had set up at the far end of the room, probably for speeches or bad karaoke later. The crowd cheered and whistled, someone shouting, "Speech, speech!" like we were at a bloody football match. He squeezed my hand once, for luck. I squeezed back, maybe a little too hard, and then I took the mic. The room settled down again, all those expectant, glowing faces turned toward us. I could feel their excitement buzzing in, the air like static electricity, everyone rooting for the love story, everyone desperate to believe in happily ever after. I let him start. He thanked everyone for coming, made a few jokes about how long it took him to get up the nerve to propose, said something about how he knew from the moment he met me that I was the one. It was all very sweet, very polished. A few people wiped away tears. Someone shouted, "Get a room!" Laughter. Applause. He beamed down at me, handing me the mic like it was a baton in some kind of twisted relay race. I took it, smiled, cleared my throat. And then, with my heart pounding in my ears but my voice calm and clear, I said, "Before we start picking dates and venues, I think we should ask the waitress if she's coming too." For a second, just one, tiny, perfect second, the room stayed frozen, silent, breathless, like the world itself had forgotten how to turn. And then, chaos. It was beautiful, really. The way the noise exploded all at once, the gasps, the sharp intakes of breath, the shouts of "What?" ricocheting off the walls like bullets. I stood there, as calm as a lake in winter, while the room around me crumbled into noise and confusion. Mum's face had gone slack with shock, her mouth open but no words coming out. Dad was frowning, turning toward the bar like he wasn't sure he'd heard me right. My best friend, bless her, had frozen halfway. Through a sip of wine, the glass trembling slightly in her hand. And him? He stared at me like I'd just stabbed him straight through the heart. Maybe I had. He opened his mouth to say something, a denial, a plea, who knows. But I beat him to it. I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. "Come on, darling," I said, sweetly, projecting my voice so the whole room could hear. "Tell everyone how long it's been going on. Or shall I?" The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might actually faint. Someone in the back whispered, "What the hell is happening?" Someone else said, "She knows. Oh my God, she knows." And still, the waitress wouldn't move. She stood rooted, to the spot behind the bar, Like if she kept wiping that same goddamn patch long enough, maybe the whole world would forget she existed. I wasn't about to let her off the hook that easily. "Hey, love," I called out, my voice cutting through the stunned chatter like a knife. "You're invited too. Don't be shy." All eyes swung toward her. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because the truth was, she wasn't some poor, innocent thing caught in a web she didn't spin. No, she'd known exactly what she was doing. She knew he was mine. She knew he had plans for me, or at least he pretended he did, and she still said yes, again and again. So no, I didn't feel sorry. Not even a little. Someone, I think it was one of his mates, let out a low whistle and muttered, "Jesus Christ," under his breath. The energy in the room had shifted now. Curiosity sharpened into something meaner. People edging forward, craning, their necks wanting to see how bad the wreckage was going to get. He tried then, stepped toward me, hands outstretched, wearing that desperate, pleading look he usually reserved for when he forgot birthdays or spent too much money on stupid gadgets we couldn't afford. "Baby, please, it's not what you think," I laughed. Actually laughed. A hard, ugly sound I didn't even recognize as my own. "Not what I think," I said, tilting my head like a curious bird. "So you didn't take her to that hotel out on the motorway last Thursday? You didn't tell her you loved her while I was at my mum's planning this bloody party?" He paled even further, if that was possible. Mum finally found her voice. Bless her. "What is she talking about?" She hissed at him, her hands fluttering in the air like angry birds. He didn't answer. Couldn't. His mouth just opened and closed like a goldfish stranded on dry land. I didn't wait. "I've got screenshots," I said, pulling my phone out of the pocket of my dress and holding it up like a trophy. Text messages, photos, even a lovely little voicemail he sent her after their last work drinks. A ripple of horror ran through the crowd. Some of his mates shuffled backward like betrayal was catching. My friends, well, they just looked heartbroken. Embarrassed for me, embarrassed for themselves, probably embarrassed they'd ever thought we were some kind of fairy tale couple. And him? He looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. Too late for that, mate. This was my moment and I wasn't finished yet. For a moment, no one moved. It was like the whole room had forgotten how to breathe. Even the bloody music in the background had stopped. Or maybe that was just in my head. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Then everything seemed to happen at once. Chairs scraping, someone knocking over a glass, murmurs swelling into full-blown chatter. Him, the man who was supposed to be my future, took a stumbling step toward me, hand outstretched, face crumpling into that wounded, pitiful expression that used to undo me. Not anymore. "Darling, we can talk about this," he said, voice cracking. "Please, don't do this here." I stared at him for a second, letting the silence stretch, letting the weight of it press down on everyone. "Here's the thing," I said, voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "You didn't mind doing this when you thought I didn't know, when you were sneaking around and laughing behind my back." I took a breath, steadying myself. "And now, suddenly, it's all too messy? Too public?" "Embarrassing for you, is it?" He winced like I'd slapped him. Good, because for months, he'd made me feel small, made me doubt my instincts, gaslit me into thinking I was crazy when I said I felt something was off, whispered sweet nothings while wiping another woman's lipstick, off his shirt, and now he got to feel what it was like. I turned to the crowd, some of whom were already slipping toward the exits, desperate not to get caught in the fallout. "I'm so sorry to ruin your evening," I said, forcing a bright, brittle smile. "But honestly, I thought you all deserved to know what kind of man he really is. No secrets between family and friends, right? A few uncomfortable chuckles, some sympathetic looks. And then, bless her, my sister stepped forward, fierce and fuming. "Did you sleep with her in Mum's house?" she asked him, her voice loud enough to bounce off the walls. I hadn't even known that bit. Christ. His eyes darted around, searching for escape, but there was nowhere to go. The waitress, the other woman, was already slipping out the side. Door, her apron discarded on a bar stool. Coward. I didn't mean for it to happen, he mumbled, voice thick with shame. You didn't mean? I repeated, laughing again. You tripped and fell into her, did you? Somewhere in the back, someone actually snorted. It might have been one of his own mates. I couldn't tell anymore. It was like watching a dam burst. The truth spilling out, messy and unstoppable. Someone shouted, "You absolute wanker!" Someone else said, "You had a good thing, you idiot!" And me? I just stood there, watching it all fall apart, feeling lighter than I had in months. He tried again. One last pathetic attempt. Baby, I made a mistake. Just a stupid mistake. Don't throw everything away over one mistake. One? Oh, he really didn't get it. It wasn't one, I said, voice low but shaking with fury. It was hundreds of little betrayals, lies, secrets, gaslighting. You killed us a long time ago. Tonight? Tonight's just the funeral. I dropped the engagement ring into his hand, a neat, final movement, and stepped back, wiping my palms on my dress like I could scrub the last traces of him off me. He stood there, looking at the tiny, glittering thing like it might bite him. Goodbye, I said, my voice steady, and then I turned and walked out the door, leaving him, and all of it, behind me. Not running, not crying, not broken, just done. Finally. The walk to the car felt like the longest of my life. My legs were shaky, but I was determined to hold it together. Outside, the cool air hit me, cutting through the heat that had built up inside, a strange relief. I could still hear the echoes of their voices, his, hers, all of them. But it was fading, like an old song that played too long and now felt out of tune. I didn't cry, not then. I didn't have time for tears. I slid into the driver's seat of my car and just stared out the windshield for a few moments, taking deep, deliberate breaths. I could feel the adrenaline slowing down. The anger had been a powerful rush, but it was giving way to something quieter. A strange sense of calm. I wasn't sure if it was the shock finally wearing off, or if it was just the relief of being done. But there was a weight lifting off my chest, and it felt like I could breathe, for the first time in years. And then I thought about the ring. I reached into my pocket and stared at the engagement ring he had shoved back into my hand. The diamonds caught the streetlight as I turned it over, its cold edges digging into my palm. It had meant something once, but now it was just a symbol of a promise he couldn't keep. I rolled the window down, the night air rushing in. I held the ring out, feeling the weight of it one last time, and then I threw it into the dark. Gone. I couldn't keep that anymore. Not when it symbolized everything that had held me back, everything that made me second-guess myself. But there was something else I knew, something that felt important. The people who mattered were out there. My sister, my friends, people who'd shown up and despite the chaos hadn't judged me for it. They'd been by my side even before I decided to make my escape. I could count on them. I started the engine, the sound breaking through the quiet of the night. I drove, no destination in mind. I just needed to move. The streets felt strangely empty, almost like the city was holding its breath with me. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but it didn't matter. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could go anywhere. The sky stretched out above me, endless and open, and I knew, in that moment, that whatever came next, I was going to be okay. There was no more hiding behind someone else's expectations. No more waiting for validation or pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I was starting fresh, and I was ready for it. It's funny how life can flip in an instant, like a switch you didn't know was there, and suddenly everything's different. I didn't expect the silence to feel this loud, but the moment I walked into my apartment, everything settled into a kind of peace I hadn't known in a long time. The kind of peace that doesn't come from anyone else's idea of what your life should be, but from the realization that you've got control of your own story. I kicked off my shoes, still wearing The same dress I'd walked out in, the one that had once been part of a day I never thought would unravel like this. I let the fabric fall around me, feeling the weight of it all drift away with each step I took. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Mia. She'd been the first one to call me after the dinner. I hadn't answered at the time. I didn't know what to say. But now, as I looked at her message, I could feel the weight of her words. "You good?" I smiled. Yeah, I was good. I quickly typed back, "Better than good. More than ready." I placed the phone down and walked over to the window. The night had wrapped itself around the city, the lights outside flickering like stars, like possibilities. I could hear the distant hum of the traffic, but it felt like background noise. The only sound I could really hear was the steady beat of my own heart. I wasn't waiting for someone else to fill the silence anymore. The silence was mine now. It was a new feeling, almost unfamiliar. But I was starting to like it. I sank onto the couch, pulling my legs up underneath me. My mind wandered back to the dinner, to the moment when I'd turned around and said what I'd said. It had been a gamble, something impulsive and reckless, but that was the beauty of it. I didn't care. I wasn't going to care anymore. There was power in that. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need anyone's. And as much as I knew people would be talking, I didn't care about that either. The truth was, they didn't understand the half of it, and I wasn't about to spend another minute explaining myself to anyone. I reached over to the side table and grabbed the journal I'd been keeping. For once, the words felt easy to write. Down. No more pretending. No more editing myself to make others comfortable. I wrote, "I'm free. The past doesn't own me anymore. I am not defined by anyone else's expectations, not by the promises I made or the ones they tried to make for me. I get to choose who I am now." I paused. I had to take that in for a moment. This was the beginning. I had no idea where it was going, or what would happen next. But I knew something. I wasn't waiting for a man, a ring, or anyone else to tell me what to do. I wasn't waiting for permission to take up space. And if the world wasn't ready for that, well, that wasn't my problem. The door was open, the future was waiting, and this time, I was walking through it on my terms.
It's a Tuesday afternoon when my phone buzzes with an unfamiliar number. I'm halfway through a meeting at work, trying to focus, but my eyes flicker to the screen. I know who it is before I even see his name. Dad. I let it ring out. There's no point in answering now. He's been calling a lot lately, and I can't help but feel the familiar knot of dread in my stomach every time. It's not because I don't love him or that I don't care. It's because every time he reaches out, there's always something attached. A favor, an obligation, something that makes me feel like I owe him. It's become a pattern I've lived with for years now, ever since I got my first job, and he somehow found a way to make his problems feel like they were mine. The money he borrowed for bills that never got paid. The countless occasions when I ended up paying his rent just to keep him from getting evicted, or buying groceries because his card was maxed out. The excuses change, but the story stays the same, and I'm the one who keeps writing the check. The phone rings again, and my thumb hovers over the screen. This time I answer, "Hey, Dad," I say, my voice coming out flat, but I can't quite shake the irritation I'm feeling. "Hey, sweetheart." His voice comes through the phone, warm and familiar, but there's a catch to it, a hidden tension I've learned to recognize. "Listen, I hate to ask, but I'm in a bit of a bind." There it is, the familiar prelude. What is it this time? I don't even try to hide the exhaustion in my voice. Well, it's nothing major, but I've been short this month and, well, you know how it is. Things just pile up sometimes. He trails off, but I can already see the angle. The classic, "I'm struggling, I'm helpless, can you help me out?" Pitch. I close my eyes, rubbing my temples. "Dad, I'm sorry, but I just don't have the money to help you right now." He doesn't seem to hear me at first, or maybe he's just used to ignoring what I say when it doesn't fit into his plan. "Well, it's just that I'm really stuck, and you're the only one I can turn to right now. I've always been there for you, haven't I?" The guilt is suffocating, like a weight on my chest. Of course, he has been there, but in his own way. It wasn't always what I needed, but it was always something. He's always found a way to make me feel like I owe him. I exhale slowly. I know you've helped in the past, but I can't keep doing this, Dad. I've got my own bills to pay now, and I can't just keep giving you money every time you need it. His silence hangs there for a moment, and I brace myself for what's coming. I know this part too well. Well, that's just great. I raised you, did everything I could for you, and now you can't even help me out when I need it? I thought you were better than that. I thought you cared. His words land with a dull thud in my chest. The guilt starts creeping in. That familiar feeling of not being good enough, not being the daughter he wants me to be. I try to push it down, but it's hard. It always is. I do care, Dad, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. But this isn't fair to me. You can't keep depending on me like this. He sighs, sounding defeated, but I know it's a trick. He's not done. You know, I just thought you'd understand. I'm your father, for God's sake. Is it too much to ask for a little help when I need it? I clench my jaw, my nails digging into my palm. It's always the same with him. I'm expected to be his emotional and financial safety net, to clean up the messes he's made without ever questioning it. But I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry, Dad, I say, my voice firm now, though the pit in my stomach remains. I can't do it this time. There's a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, finally, he speaks, his tone dripping with venom. You're selfish, you know that? All these years, I've always had your back, and now that you're doing okay for yourself, you can't even help your old man? You should be ashamed of yourself. And there it is. The accusation, the guilt trip, the manipulation. I open my mouth to respond, but I don't know what to say. Part of me wants to give in, to let him wear me down like he's done so many times before. But something inside me snaps. No, Dad. I'm not ashamed. I'm not your personal bank. You need to figure this out on your own. I hang up the phone before he can say anything else. The silence in my apartment feels different now, heavier, like a weight pressing down on my shoulders. I can still hear his voice echoing in my head, his accusations burning in my ears. I know I've done the right thing. I have to keep telling myself that. But it doesn't make the decision any easier. For years, I've let him walk all over me, let him take what he wanted without a second thought. But this time, I've said no. And no matter how much it stings, I know it's the only way forward. The question now is, what happens next? The phone call ends, but the tension doesn't. I can still feel the heat of his words, the sting of his accusations. I've heard them all before, of course, but somehow they hit differently today. Maybe because I finally stood up for myself. Maybe because I'm finally realizing how much I've allowed him to control my life. It's hard not to feel guilty, though. He's my father. He raised me in his own way. The thought of him struggling should make me want to help, right? But the truth is, I'm tired. Tired of being the one who cleans up his messes, of constantly putting my life on hold to rescue him. I pour myself a glass of wine, sit down at my desk, and try to distract myself by scrolling through emails. But it's not working. My mind keeps drifting back to that conversation, to his voice filled with disappointment, with anger. I can't get it out of my head. And then, out of nowhere, the idea hits me. I don't know why it took me this long to think of it. Maybe it's because I've always been so careful to avoid confrontation, so afraid of making things worse. But today, for some reason, I feel different. The floodgates have opened, and I'm done holding back. I open a new document on my laptop and start typing. It starts out simple, just a list of things I've paid for over the years. At first, it's just a few things: his rent, some bills, groceries when he forgot to budget. But then, it quickly becomes a long, detailed list. The more I think about it, the more examples come flooding in. The car repairs that should have been his responsibility, but I ended up paying because he couldn't afford it. The last-minute plane ticket I bought him when he said he couldn't make it to my graduation. The small loans that always turned into bigger ones, never paid back. The list grows longer, and with each new item, the anger inside me grows stronger. I don't just want to confront him. I want him to understand how much I've given, how much I've sacrificed for him, and how unfair it all is. He needs to see it, all laid out in black and white. And I need to remind myself too. Remind myself that I've done more than enough. So I keep typing. The list takes shape, and I start to categorize everything. Loans, gifted items, emergency support. Each section is a different chapter of my life that I've devoted to him, and each one is a painful reminder of how much I've bent over backward, how much I've overlooked. After an hour, I sit back and look at the spreadsheet in front of me. The numbers are staggering. The amounts don't even matter anymore. What matters is the weight of the responsibility I've carried for all these years, and how little it's been acknowledged. I add one final row at the bottom, the one that's been forming in my mind ever since he called me selfish. Debt paid. So is my patience. I stare at it for a moment. It feels good to see it there, like a final act of defiance, like I'm taking back control of something that's always been out of my hands. I know I should just let it go. I should forget about the whole thing and move on, but I can't. Not this time, not when he's used me so much. I need him to see this. I need him to understand that I'm not his to exploit anymore. I send the email with the attachment before I can second-guess myself. I don't say anything in the body of the email, just the spreadsheet. I close my laptop, take a deep breath, and wait. It doesn't take long for the email to land in my inbox. I didn't expect him to reply immediately, but when I see his name flash on the screen, I feel a strange, almost electric rush of anticipation. It's like I'm waiting for the moment everything will either fall apart or finally click into place. I open the email, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. His reply is short, too short. I knew it would be. He's never been good with words, especially when he's backed into a corner. It's not what he says, though. It's the tone that gets to me. His words are filled with that familiar mix of condescension and defensiveness. He tries to play the victim, as always. Really? This is what you've come to? You're going to guilt me like this? I've always done the best I could. If you weren't so selfish, maybe you'd understand. It stings. It stings. More than I want it to. I'd prepared myself for his response, but I hadn't anticipated how quickly he would turn this around on me. It's like nothing ever changes with him. He's always the one who gets to twist everything to make me feel like I'm the one in the wrong, but this time, I don't let the guilt settle in. Not this time. I remind myself of the spreadsheet. The cold, hard facts I've just laid out. Every penny I've spent, every favor I've given, every ounce of my energy I've poured into this relationship, it's all right there in black and white. I don't respond straight away. I don't want to. Instead, I take a moment to breathe, to process his words without letting them get to me. I've been here before, many times. His pattern hasn't changed. His tactics are old, but they still work if you let them. I sit back in my chair trying to figure out my next move. I could fire back a response, an even colder one, laying out how much more I've given than he's ever acknowledged. Or I could keep silent, let him stew in his own anger. The latter seems almost too tempting, but I know better than to engage with him when he's this worked up. Instead, I focus on something else. I get up from my desk and walk to the window, looking out at the street below. The rain has started, softly pattering against the window. It's calming, the sound of it. I let it wash over me for a while, giving me the space to clear my head. But even as I stand there, I know I can't just let it go. I need to finish this. I need him to understand the depth of what he's asking, the weight of the burden he's been putting on me for years. I don't want him to feel sorry for me. I just want him to see the truth. So, after a while, I sit back down and draft a new response. This time, I'm not angry, I'm not emotional, I'm methodical. I go over the numbers again, checking everything to make sure there are no errors. I want him to have no excuse this time. These are the facts, I write. I've been doing this for years, and I've never once asked for anything in return. You've always expected me to carry the load, and I've done so willingly. But this time I can't. I won't. You need to find another way, just like everyone else does. I've given enough. I don't mention the word selfish. I don't need to. He's already proven that he's going to use that against me no matter what I say. I hit send. This time I feel no guilt, no regret. There's a certain power in it. The power of finally saying no, of taking back some control in a situation that's been out of my hands for too long. I sit back and wait, knowing that this might not be the last time we have this conversation, but it's a step. It's a small victory. And strangely, for the first time in years, I feel a bit lighter. I didn't expect him to stay silent for long. Of course, he doesn't. Within hours, I get another email. This time it's longer and it hits harder. The words leap off the screen, the frustration and anger practically dripping from every line. I almost don't want to read it. Almost. But I can't help myself. "You think you can just walk away like that?" he writes. "You're no better than your mother. She walked out on us too, you know? You think I don't remember that? All these years and you can't even give me a little help when I need it most?" I stare at the screen, the familiar twinge of guilt beginning to stir, but I push it down, harder than I ever have before. The mention of Mum, though, that always gets to me. I try not to think about it. I can't think about it. Not now. I take a deep breath, pushing aside the rising anger that's threatening to boil over. It's his game, the one where he makes it all about his suffering, about how he's the one who's been wronged. I've played it with him too many times before, but not today. Not this time. I open a new document and type my response. It's carefully measured. I won't let him drag me into his emotional mess. He's been doing that for years. And I'm done. "I'm not your mother," I type, every word biting a little harder than the last. "You've spent years trying to make me feel guilty for things I didn't do, for decisions I couldn't control. And I've spent years trying to fix things that were never my responsibility. But I can't keep doing this. Not for you, not for anyone." I pause, my fingers hovering over the keys. I want to add something about how it's always been him, putting me in the middle, making me feel like I owed him everything because of what he's done, or what he claims he's done. But I stop myself. There's no point. It's not going to change his mind, and it's certainly not going to change the way he manipulates the situation. Instead, I write, "I've tried to be there for you in every way I could. But this is too much. I'm not responsible for your debts, and I'm not going to keep paying for things that were never my burden to carry." I hit send. The email is quiet for a few minutes, and I wonder if he's still processing my words, or if he's sitting there, stewing in his anger. Then the familiar ping of a new message echoes through my headphones. His reply is sharp, immediate. "You're a disappointment. I've done everything for you, and this is how you repay me? With a spreadsheet? Do you really think this is going to make me see your point? You don't care about me. Not really. All you care about is yourself." It's the same old line, the same thing he's always said when I've tried to set boundaries. And somehow, it's always been enough to make me second-guess myself. But not today. I let out a long breath, staring at the screen. I've been here before. I know how this plays out. He'll keep pushing, keep twisting, keep demanding until I either give in or cut ties. But I'm not going to give in. I can't, and I won't. I open my email again and type back. This time, slower, more deliberate. "I don't care about your guilt trips anymore. I've been giving and giving, and you've never once acknowledged it. All I've ever asked for is respect. But that's not something you seem capable of understanding. So, no, I won't loan you any more money. Not today. Not ever." I pause, almost daring myself to take it further. But I stop. He's never going to change. I know that now. The real question is, can I change? I don't wait for him to reply. This time. I know what will come next. More of the same. More guilt, more blame, more manipulation. But I've made my decision. And it's final. The fallout has started. But this time, I'm not afraid of the storm. The days pass in a strange, tense silence. My inbox is unnaturally quiet, and the phone doesn't ring, even though I know he's sitting somewhere, fuming. Part of me wonders if he's waiting for me to cave in, to send another email, to apologize. But I won't. I can't. It's almost like he's waiting for me to break. Like this has all been some kind of test to see how far I'm willing to go before I fold, but I'm not folding. Not this time. I do hear from him once more. By text. This time. Simple, direct. Come over. Let's talk. I read the message and put the phone down without replying. No more talking. I know how these conversations go. It's always the same. He'll sit there, playing the victim, making me feel like I'm the one who's wrong, that somehow I owe him for everything he's ever done for me, even if it was just what he was supposed to do as a father. And I won't fall for it again. Few more days pass. I get on with my life, work, errands, a few evenings spent with friends. I tell myself I'm doing fine, but the truth is, it's harder than I expected. The silence is deafening. The space he's left behind feels heavy, like an empty room I can't quite escape. It's the kind of silence that presses in on you, making you question everything. Whether you've made the right decision, whether the fallout is really worth it. But then I think of everything I've already sacrificed. All the years of keeping him happy at my expense. All the times I've bent over backward to keep the peace. I've tried to make things right in ways that have only left me feeling more lost. He hasn't changed, and no amount of sacrifice on my part ever will. Still, the ache in my chest won't go away. It's the weirdest feeling, like I'm mourning something I don't even want. The morning of the next email is gray and cold, with the kind of rain that makes you want to stay in bed and forget about the world. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, sipping coffee when I hear the familiar ping of a new message. I don't even need to look to know who it's from. It's him. I hesitate. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, but I open it anyway. Fine. You win. But you're going to regret this. I swallow hard. There's no apology, no recognition of my boundaries, just more of the same. I try not to let it get to me, but the words linger, pulling me back into the whirlwind of emotions I thought I'd escaped. I reply simply, "You don't get to dictate what I feel. It feels good, empowering almost." But then my phone rings, and I know, just by the sound of it, that it's him. I don't answer. I sit there, staring at my phone, the weight of the decision I've made settling in like a stone in my stomach. There's no going back now. I won't go back to the old dynamic. I can't. But part of me is terrified of what this means. What if this truly is the end of everything? What if I'm throwing away a relationship I can't get back? But then I think of the spreadsheet, the email that ended everything. My patience is gone, and I don't owe him any more explanations. The phone rings again, and again, I let it go, to voicemail. This time I don't even check it. I've done enough explaining, and I know exactly what his message will say. It's quiet again, but this time, it feels different. This time, the silence doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like freedom. The days that follow are almost anticlimactic. It's like we're both waiting for something, some grand final confrontation or epiphany. But nothing dramatic happens. There's no emotional breakdown on his part, no tearful apologies or pleas for reconciliation. It's just more silence. And the silence, it doesn't bother me the way it used to. It doesn't feel like abandonment anymore. It feels like peace. Then, one morning, I open my inbox and see a new message. It's from him. I don't hesitate this time. I open it. "Your mother's been crying." The words hit me harder than I expected. For a moment, I can't breathe. Guilt claws at me, cold and sharp. I don't know why. Maybe because it's my mother he's using to try and get to me. Maybe because I've spent so much of my life trying to keep the peace, trying to please them both, that hearing her sadness feels like the last emotional card he has left to play. But then I stop myself. I breathe in, deep and steady. I don't owe him this. I don't owe him anything. I sit at my desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard, and for a moment, I think about responding. Something, anything, to make it right. But then I think of everything I've given, how much I've sacrificed. I think of that spreadsheet I sent, the one that started this whole mess, that final line, so simple but so full of weight. Debt paid, so is my patience, That's when it hits me. My patience is gone. My sense of obligation to fix things, to smooth over his feelings, to take responsibility for a dynamic that was never mine to fix, is gone. I owe him nothing. I am not responsible for his tears, for his regrets, for his unresolved issues. I can't carry that anymore. So, I don't respond. I don't offer an explanation. And I don't give him the satisfaction of thinking I'll come running just because he's tugging at my heartstrings. I send nothing. Instead, I go about my day. I meet a friend for coffee. I smile. I talk about work and life. I laugh at a joke. It feels normal, uncomplicated, and just like that, the finality of it hits me. It's over. It was always going to be over, but I didn't realize just how much of me had been tied to that relationship until now, until I could let go of it completely. I'm not the same person I was when I started this. I don't have to justify my boundaries, don't have to apologize for taking care of myself. I get up, pour myself another cup of coffee, and sit back down at my desk. The phone rings again. I don't even look at it. Some things don't need to be said anymore.
I had always thought of us as happy. Not the kind of happy that's wrapped in shiny paper and bows, all sparkly and perfect. No, our happiness was like a worn-out sweater, comfortably lived in, familiar. I wasn't expecting fireworks every day, but I believed we had something good. I suppose I was wrong. I walked into the living room to find him, Ben, sitting on the couch, phone in hand. Nothing out of the ordinary at first, but something in the air felt different. A slight change, like a shift in the weather that you can't quite put your finger on until it's too late. Ben, can you pass me the remote? I asked, as casually as I could. He didn't even look up. Just muttered something about being in the middle of a text. A text. That was it. The moment, I felt the stirrings of doubt in my stomach. I should have walked away. But curiosity, that insidious little thing, tugged at me. I looked over his shoulder, not to invade his privacy, but because I thought I saw my name flash across the screen. Ben, what's that? I asked, nodding toward the phone. He shifted, his body stiffening for just a second, enough to make me notice. Then he smiled, the smile that never quite reached his eyes anymore, and said, "Nothing." Nothing. I wanted to believe him, I really did, but something about the way he said it didn't sound right. I didn't push it, not right then. But that was the moment it all started to unravel. Later that evening, after dinner, I found the phone again, this time left carelessly on the kitchen counter. I knew I shouldn't. I knew I'd find something that would change everything. But I couldn't stop myself. The screen lit up with a message from someone named Lena. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place, right?" The knot in my stomach tightened, but I kept reading. "I missed you. I wish I didn't have to share you with her." Her. I swallowed, feeling the world tilt beneath my feet. I stared at those words, each one carving into me like a blade. My mind raced, but all I could do was blink at the screen. I stood there, in the kitchen for what felt like hours, trying to force my heart to beat again, to focus, to think clearly. But nothing made sense. How could I have missed this? How could I have been so blind? I waited for him to come home, hoping that maybe there was an explanation that could make everything right again. I needed answers. When he walked through the door, I could see the shift in his face, the way his eyes avoided mine. He knew I knew. "Anna," he said, voice too calm, too rehearsed. "I can explain." I didn't need an explanation. I needed the truth. And I needed it now. "What's going on, Ben?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. I wasn't going to let him see how much I was shaking. "Who is she?" His eyes flicked toward the floor, and for the first time, I saw guilt, real guilt, sneak in. But before I could feel any sense of satisfaction, his lips twisted into something that was almost a sneer. "Her name is Lena, and yes, we've been seeing each other," he said, his voice cold now. "But that's not the problem, is it?" I frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" not the problem. He crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe as if this conversation were just another boring task to get through. The problem, Anna, is you. You're not exciting anymore. You don't do anything fun. You've become so predictable. My stomach churned with disbelief. Was this really happening? Was he seriously blaming me for his affair? Excuse me? My voice broke, but I quickly steadied myself. You're blaming me? I'm not blaming you, he said, his tone dismissive. But you've been so boring. You don't do anything spontaneous. You're just a wife, a mother. I don't know, I just needed more. I felt my chest tighten, the breath leaving, me in slow, shaky exhalations. So, this was it. This was what he thought of me after all these years. This was why he had cheated. The words stung, but it wasn't the betrayal that hurt the most. It was the realization that he wasn't even sorry. He wasn't apologizing for what he had done. He was apologizing for me. Not being enough, for not being what he expected. And in that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I didn't say anything. For a long while, staring at him as he stood there, waiting for me to react. He didn't see it, but I was already processing something deep inside me. A shift, like the slow break of dawn. I didn't have to be what he wanted anymore. I didn't owe him anything, and that was the beginning of everything. I spent the night on the couch, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stand the thought of sharing the bed with him, not after everything that had just come out. The betrayal hung in the air, thick and suffocating. He didn't even try to apologize, to make me feel like we could work through it. No. Instead, he'd practically placed the blame on me, as though I was the one who'd failed him. I couldn't sleep, but I could think. I thought about everything I had done for him, for this relationship. The years of sacrificing my own wants, the compromises, the quiet support that went unappreciated. And for what? To be told that I was boring? That I wasn't exciting? Enough? I ran my fingers over my phone, scrolling through old photos of us. There we were, smiling, carefree, in love. Or so I thought. I wanted to delete them all. I wanted to burn them to the ground. But that wouldn't change anything, would it? The damage was already done. The pictures were just proof that I had been living in a fantasy, one where I believed our marriage was strong, built on something real. It wasn't. It was just another illusion. By the time morning came, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Ben was in the kitchen, already making coffee, as if everything were normal. He didn't even glance at me when I walked in. It was like I had ceased to exist in the way I had before, like I was some faded background character in his story. Ben, I said, trying to keep my voice level, we need to talk. He didn't respond at first, just sipped his coffee, acting like this was a typical conversation. He was so used to treating me like I was a fixture, something he could move around without consequence. You really think it's that simple, don't you? I continued. You think you can cheat on me, humiliate me, and just expect me to accept it, to change who I am for you. He let out a sigh, his patience already running thin. Anna, you're blowing this out of proportion. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? That was when I realized how far gone he was. He didn't even get it. He didn't understand the weight of what he had done. I squared my shoulders, took a deep breath, and decided. I wasn't going to be the woman who begged for an apology. I wasn't going to beg for a love that had already been tossed aside. I'm leaving, I said calmly. I'm done. That was it. His eyes widened, and for the first time in ages, I saw something resembling concern flicker in his gaze. But it was too late. The decision was made. You can't be serious, he said, his voice rising, the first crack in his mask of indifference. I am, I replied. You don't get to call me boring, and you don't get to ruin my life with your lies. I'm taking some time for myself. I need to figure out what I want, what I need. Ben opened his mouth as if to argue, but then seemed to think better of it. Instead, he just shook his head, his disbelief turning into something darker, something I couldn't quite place. So what? You're just going to leave? without any warning. His tone was accusatory, like I had betrayed him. But I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to explain myself. "I don't owe you an explanation," I said softly. "I'll be back for my things later." I walked out of the house, not once looking back. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I had to get out. I needed space to think, to breathe without his shadow hanging over me. I couldn't stay in that house anymore, not after everything that had happened. Not after I realized just how little he actually cared. I made a few phone calls, friends I hadn't seen in ages, family I distanced myself from, and set myself up in a little apartment downtown. It was small, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a little bit of peace. But that wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed to feel alive again. I needed to take control of my life and remind myself who I was before I got lost in this relationship. The woman I used to be, the one who wasn't afraid to chase what she wanted. The one who was exciting in her own way. That night, as I lay in my new bed, staring at the ceiling, I decided I wasn't going to sit around and wait for the dust to settle. I wasn't going to beg for Ben's love or approval. I wasn't going to wallow in sorrow and guilt. I wasn't going to let his words define me. Instead, I was going to make him regret everything. It didn't take long for me to realize that staying in that little apartment wasn't enough. Sure, it was a change of scenery, but the silence was suffocating. The constant hum of the city outside felt like a reminder of how lonely I was now. Ben's absence had created a vacuum in my life, and I wasn't sure how to fill it. I kept thinking of him, his careless words, his betrayal, his indifference. But I refused to let myself get stuck there. I was done crying, done feeling sorry for myself. I needed something to shake me out of this rut, something bold, something audacious. That's when I thought about Bali. I hadn't been there before, but I'd always heard it was beautiful, lush, serene, full of life. A place where people went to rediscover themselves. The idea came to me almost like a spark. I didn't need permission from anyone to go. I didn't need a reason. I could go simply because I wanted to. I didn't have to ask for anyone's approval, especially not Ben's. In fact, I'd never felt more liberated. The idea made me giddy, like I was doing something so completely mine, a statement in and of itself. I didn't waste any time. The next morning, I booked a flight to Bali. I didn't overthink it. There was no need to second-guess myself. I was going, and that was final. After I booked the flight, I took a long walk through the city, letting my thoughts run wild. I thought about everything I could do while I was there. Spa days, yoga retreats, exploring hidden beaches. I'd be in paradise, away from everything. Away from the people who expected things from me. Away from the mess I'd left behind. I came back to the apartment that evening, sat at my desk, and stared at the screen of my laptop. It was time to put my next step into motion. I was going to make sure that Ben knew exactly how little his actions affected me. I started drafting an email. Something simple but pointed. Something he'd never forget. Subject: You wanted excitement? Ben, I'm going to be honest. I've never been more excited about something in my life. I booked a flight to Bali today. I'm going alone, just me, because I've finally realized that I don't need anyone else to make me feel whole. You called me boring. Well, I'm about to show you what excitement really looks like. I'm going to live in a way you never thought I could. Have a great life. I'll be back when I'm ready to collect my things. Anna, it was a short email, but it was exactly what I needed. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't care if he was hurt. I didn't care if he was angry. What mattered was that I was doing something for myself. The next few days passed in a blur. I packed my bags, made arrangements for my apartment, and most importantly, I told myself that I wasn't looking back. The woman who was trapped in a marriage built on lies was gone. The woman who was about to embark on a solo journey to reclaim herself, she was just getting started. Bali was waiting. I boarded my flight with nothing but excitement buzzing in my chest. When the plane took off, it felt like I was leaving everything behind. Ben, the disappointment, the years of trying to be someone I wasn't. I was leaving all of it behind. The plane touched down in Bali in the late afternoon, and I felt a rush of anticipation in my veins. As I stepped off the plane, the warm, humid air wrapped around me like a welcome embrace. The city of Denpasar wasn't the place I'd be staying, but I could already sense the energy of this place was different, vibrant, full of life. I took a deep breath, inhaling the tropical air, and smiled to myself. This was my escape. This was my chance to breathe again. I checked into my resort, a small villa tucked away from the hustle of the main tourist areas. It was exactly what I needed. Quiet. Peaceful. A place where I could finally rest, truly rest, without feeling like I was walking on eggshells. The staff was kind and welcoming, and as I settled into my room, I couldn't help but feel like this was where I was meant to be right now. I didn't waste time. I booked a massage for the next morning, a facial, and a few spa treatments to start the healing process. I had no intention of rushing through this trip. I had no itinerary, no expectations, only freedom. As the night fell, I sat on the balcony of my villa, looking out at the tropical landscape below. The distant sound of ocean waves lapping at the shore. The world felt like it was spinning in slow motion, and for the first time in a long time, I felt grounded, calm. Tomorrow I'd start anew, but tonight I would simply exist, and that was enough. The morning came too quickly, but I wasn't going to waste a single moment of it. I woke up early, just as the sun began to rise, casting a soft golden glow over the landscape. I threw on my lightest dress, grabbed a hat, and slipped on my sandals. My first stop? The spa. Of course. It wasn't just about the massage or the facial or the endless pampering I had planned. It was about letting go of everything. Everything that had weighed me down for so long. The pressure of being the perfect wife. The nagging voice in my head telling me I wasn't enough. The sting of betrayal that I carried in the pit of my stomach. This was my time. The spa was nothing short of luxurious. The scent of jasmine filled the air as I was led into a private room. I lay down on the massage table, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to fully relax. The tension in my shoulders melted away as the therapist worked on my muscles. My body, which had been so tense, finally began to soften. I could feel the weight of all my past regrets and fears lifting off of me. When the treatment was over, I felt like a new person. The world felt a little lighter, a little brighter. I could see why people came here to heal. Bali was a place of renewal. After the spa, I decided to take a walk around the resort. The grounds were stunning, lush greenery, vibrant flowers, and the sound of birds singing in the trees. It was a far cry from the concrete jungle I had left behind. As I wandered, I found myself smiling more than I had in months. There was a freedom in this place, an openness I hadn't known I'd been craving. I paused by a small garden with a koi pond, the fish swimming lazily through the clear water. I sat down on a bench, taking it all in. It felt like everything had aligned perfectly, like I had made the right decision to come here. I was finally allowing myself to breathe, to exist, not as someone's wife or someone's partner, but simply as myself. I pulled out my phone and took a selfie, something I hadn't done in a long time. I caught my reflection in the lens, and for the first time, I saw someone who was happy. Free. I added the caption, "Found my excitement." It felt almost like a declaration, a little note to the universe. Ben had been right about one thing. I wasn't the same person anymore. But what he didn't know, what he'd never understand, was that I had finally found the version of myself that had been buried under years of compromise, under the weight of other people's expectations. The day drifted by as I explored more of the resort. I signed up for a yoga class, something I had always been curious about but never had the time or the courage to try. The instructor was kind and patient, guiding me through each stretch and pose. It wasn't about being perfect, but about being present. It was a philosophy I could get behind. As I lay on the mat at the end of the session, my body at peace, I closed my eyes and imagined everything I was leaving behind. Ben, with his false accusations, the life I'd been trapped in. I imagined all of it being washed away by the gentle waves I had heard earlier. When I opened my eyes, I felt like a different person. The weight of my old life was gone, and I felt lighter, more fluid. I was moving forward, and nothing, not even Ben, could drag me back. That evening, I went to a local restaurant for dinner. It was on a cliffside with a view of the ocean below. I ordered something fresh, something I couldn't even pronounce, but it was exactly what I needed. As I ate, I noticed the couple at the table next to mine. They were laughing, sharing stories. I could feel the warmth between them. It made me smile. For a moment, I thought about what I had with Ben. The beginning had been so full of promise. We had once laughed like that, shared secrets and dreams. But somewhere along the way, it had turned into a routine, a performance, not a partnership. I couldn't help but wonder if I had ever really been seen for who I was, or if I'd just been a role I played. It didn't matter now. The woman who sat here alone at the edge of the world wasn't that same woman. She had discovered something that went far beyond what Ben had ever offered. She had discovered her own strength. When I returned to the villa that night, I opened the door and felt a rush of peace. I hadn't felt this kind of solitude in years. I didn't feel lonely, just content. For the first time, I wasn't living for anyone else. I wasn't seeking approval or validation. I was simply living, and that was enough. I woke up the next morning with the sun streaming through the large windows of my villa, casting warm beams on the floor. It felt like I had been here for weeks, even though it had only been a few days. The time had stretched out, given me the space to breathe, to think, and to understand what I wanted next. It wasn't just about running away anymore. I'd been running, yes, but not from Ben, not from the marriage. I had been running from the version of myself I had lost. I was looking for her. I was trying to find the woman who had been there all along but had buried herself under the weight of other people's expectations. But now I was ready to face what I had left behind. Bali had given me the clarity I needed, the calm, and the quiet space to truly see what had been broken. I spent the day at the beach, walking along the shoreline, feeling the soft sand beneath my feet. The sound of the ocean, the rhythmic crash of waves against the shore, was oddly grounding. It reminded me of the slow rhythm of my own heartbeat, steady, unyielding. As the day wore on, I couldn't ignore the reality waiting for me back home. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't stay in this bubble forever, no matter how much I wanted to. Bali had given me the peace I needed, but it was time to bring that peace back with me. The next morning, I packed my bags. I checked out of the resort, leaving behind the luxury, the spa treatments, and the clarity that had washed over me. It was time to face what was waiting for me at home. I felt different, stronger, more centered. I wasn't the same person who had left just a few days ago. I could feel that in every inch of me. When I boarded the plane back to the real world, I looked out the window and said goodbye to the island that had given me everything I needed. I wasn't just leaving a beautiful place. I was leaving a version of myself behind, too. The old me, the one who had been small, quiet, and afraid to take up space, she was staying in Bali. I was coming back as someone new. Back at the airport, I could already feel the weight of what was to come. The idea of walking back into the life I'd once known, the life I'd shared with Ben, was no longer as daunting as it had once been. I wasn't afraid of confronting him. I was afraid of losing what I had gained while I'd been away. When I stepped out of the airport and into the car, the air felt thick. It was strange, knowing that Ben had no idea what had been happening to me while I was gone. He probably still thought I was a mess. Probably still believed I was the same woman who had let him walk all over me. But I wasn't. I hadn't called him once while I was away. I hadn't sent a single text. I didn't need to. He could wait. I didn't owe him anything. As the car made its way home, I felt the weight of the moment coming closer. I had already made my decision. I had already made peace with the fact that whatever came next, I would be fine. The house looked the same as it always had, too clean, too empty. The moment I stepped inside, it felt like I was stepping into an old version of myself. The version of me who had clung to expectations. The one who had kept quiet and waited for things to change on their own. I heard him before I saw him, his voice coming from the living room, casual as ever. He was on the phone, talking about some project at work, not even acknowledging that I was home. I stood there for a moment, taking it all in. The old house, the old life. It all seemed so small now, so suffocating. The person who had lived here, who had been trapped in this life, wasn't who I was anymore. I walked into the living room, where Ben was sitting on the couch, still on the phone. He glanced up at me as if nothing had changed. "Oh, you're back," he said, as if I'd just returned from a weekend trip. "How was Bali?" I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. "It was amazing," I said, my voice steady. "I've never felt more alive." He raised an eyebrow, clearly not understanding the weight of what I was saying. He was still so lost in his own world, his own ego, that he had no idea how much I had changed. "I'm glad you had fun," he said, turning back to his phone conversation. "I hope you got some good pictures. You could probably use a little excitement in your life." I don't think he realized how much those words stung, how they cut into the very core of everything I had learned in Bali. He still thought of me as the same woman who had clung to him for validation, for approval. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I watched him for a moment longer, the way he went back to his phone, oblivious to the change in the air. There was no apology, no recognition of the fact that I had just returned from an island halfway across the world. He didn't even care to ask how I was really doing, how I had found myself. I took a slow, deliberate breath. The woman I had been would have waited for him to notice me. She would have bent over backward to explain herself, to prove that she was worthy of his attention, his affection, his anything. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I let the silence stretch, just long enough for him to feel uncomfortable, just long enough for him to realize that I wasn't going to fill the air with unnecessary words, that I wasn't going to beg for his validation. "Ben," I said finally, and my voice was calm. Too calm, almost. He looked up, startled by the tone. "Yeah? I'm not going to do this anymore," I said, and I let the words hang there, heavy and final. His expression morphed from confusion to annoyance. "Do what?" he asked, like it was some trivial thing. "This," I replied, sweeping a hand across the living room. "Us. The way things have been. You blaming me for your mistakes. You treating me like I'm just here to pick up your pieces. You think I'm boring? Fine, I'm not boring anymore." I could see the shift in him, the way he was trying to control the situation, trying to deflect, trying to tell me I was overreacting, but I wasn't interested in hearing it. I wasn't interested in his excuses anymore. "You can't just..." He faltered, his voice rising in anger. "You can't just drop everything and leave and then come back acting like you're some different person. What happened in Bali, huh? Did you have some kind of epiphany or something? Because I don't think it changes anything." I smiled, a small knowing smile that was all for me. "Oh, it changes everything. You just don't realize it yet." I stood there, watching him, waiting for him to understand that I had already moved on. He was still stuck in the past, trying to hold on to whatever version of me he had decided I was supposed to be, but I wasn't going to wait around for him to catch up anymore. "I'm done," I said, and my voice was firm now. Done with the guilt, done with the blaming, done with trying to fix something that's broken. He opened his mouth to say something, but I didn't let him. I stepped closer, looking him straight in the eyes. "You're not the one who gets to decide who I am anymore, Ben. I get to do that. And I've decided that I'm not going to waste any more of my time on someone who doesn't see me for who I am. The woman who went to Bali. The woman who spent an entire week learning to love herself again. That woman, she's not here for your nonsense anymore." For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. It was the first time in a long while that he wasn't in control. The first time he wasn't able to manipulate me with guilt or shame, and it felt good. No, it felt great. Like I was finally in control of my own narrative, I grabbed my purse from the table by the door and turned to leave. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice a mix of confusion and frustration. "To find excitement," I said, the words coming out as naturally as if they'd always been there. "To find the life I've been waiting for. I've got everything I need right here." I held up my phone and showed him the last picture I had taken in Bali, the selfie I had snapped on the beach, the one I'd captioned, "Found my excitement." Ben looked at it, a confused frown creasing his brow. "You're serious, aren't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The picture said everything. I stepped out of the door, leaving behind a life that no longer fit, no longer served me. I didn't know exactly where I was going next, but I knew it would be somewhere. That was mine, somewhere I could breathe, somewhere I could live without waiting for permission. And as I walked down the street, the sun shining bright above me, I felt a smile curl up on my lips. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't waiting for anyone to validate me. For the first time in a long time, I was exactly where I needed to be.